Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Also, I want to thank everyone who attended from all over the world, different university, different language, different countries. So thank you so much. Also, I want to thank who's joining us today in the YouTube. Today is a special day. Today now ITAR, it's complete 1 year, and we'll start our second year with a new guest keynote speaker, inshallah. So thank you for your support. Thank you for keep attending our online webinar, and hope we'll continue doing that. Today our keynote speaker is Dr. Fatma Al-Hashim, is an associate professor at Gulf University for Science and Technology, GUST, and chair for the Center of Teaching, Learning and Research at GUST. She received a doctoral degree in curriculum and instruction in science education from Arizona State University. She worked as general manager for teacher development department at the National Center for Education Development from 2015 until 2018. She is a strong advocate for supporting teachers in general and supporting women in science education in specific. She is involved in different projects that serve education system, mainly clustered around teachers development. She leads many educational projects as a consultant in UNDP, UNESCO, and CAFAS. Her professional interests focus on professional development for teachers, teachers' practices, teacher policies, and STEAM education. Her current projects are teacher effectiveness, teacher license, and STEAM for women. Her research talk about TABAC model and TIMSS studies. Also, she is a member of National Science Teacher Associate, NASTA, and Kuwait Sorbtomist. So thank you so much, Dr. Fatma, for accepting my invitation. I really appreciate your time and effort. And before we start, as always, you have to, if you have any question to ask Dr. Fatma, inshallah, it will be after her presentation. Dr. Fatma, you have 45 to 1 hour for your presentation. Then we'll open a floor for any question. You have two types, guys, to ask Dr. Fatma. You can write your question from in Q&A below the screen, or you can raise your hand and we'll go one by one to ask Dr. Fatma. Please, please don't write your question in the chat, because the chat is keep rolling and I can't catch your question. Thank you so much. And Dr. Fatma, again, thank you so much and welcome with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed Al-Gattan, for allowing me to present and be with, from all over the globe and all the researcher and doctoral students, professors. Thank you for joining, and thank you for, joining, and we will talk about something really touches the basis of social science. Let me just share my screen very quickly. Okay, that's the PowerPoint presentation. Right, we'll talk about, I want to talk about the reason why I agreed to participate today. Is just I wanted to raise the flag of the hidden variables, the hidden curriculum, the culture influences in social science research. When I started my doctoral degree, you are still learning about in depth about theories, about methodologies. And I still remember my classmate used to tell me, Fatma, we're just beginning by earning this doctoral degree, we're just beginning, and this is the first step in our research. And that was really, really exactly what happened. So when I finished my doctoral degree, I felt like, no, I did not learn enough. I need to go and learn more. So when I started, when I finished my doctoral degree in 2012, I went back to Kuwait, my country. I did not get the job immediately in a university as a professor, but I had the opportunity to explore the society through working at the National Center for National Center for Education Development, which is called NCED. I worked with the consultation with the World Bank, explored the society, but with the lens of all the theories that I've learned. And when I started working, experience really matters. And the more you are with people, especially in social sciences research, the more you'll be aware and you'll be able to connect things together. So when we talk about it, all right, is it science that affects culture or culture that affects science? This is a dilemma because it goes both ways. If we start with the first sentence, science affects culture. Well, in some ways, we are influenced by some theories that would guide us and will shift the culture and will allow the culture. And I'll give you examples. I'm sharing with you 3 examples today. So science affects culture because sometimes, in the education field, we have Vygotsky's theories, the social, psycho theories that really guide the lens of the teacher to analyze a case of a student. So sometimes those theories and science behind those theories will affect the culture of the classroom and will make the teacher, take actions based on that. However, sometimes culture affects science, and here comes the, the influence of the hidden variable. Sometimes, we have this assumption that we are born with it and we don't see it, just like the fish in water. The fish in the water can't see the water, they can't see the water, they live in that medium. Just like us, we live in the medium of our culture. And sometimes when we have assumptions, we don't know that we are choosing those assumptions based on our culture. Therefore, sometimes, when I did my thesis and my dissertation, I chose to do it on a different culture. I'm from Kuwait. I'm an Arab woman. I did not grow up in the States. I grew up most of my life in Kuwait. But when I went there, it's like, no, I need to explore and I need to learn the culture and the science. It was challenging. It was not easy. So I came with a different culture. So my perspective was always different. And that made my dissertation even more stronger. And I was able to explore the urban setting from a different perspective. So my dissertation was about what motivates science teachers to, what motivates them to stay in urban settings. one doesn't know, the urban settings in the States usually are surrounding with poverty, socioeconomic status, low socioeconomic status, a lot of worker, a lot of, problems, different ethnicities, migrant sometimes in some states. So those are the vulnerable, let's say, group that being sometimes what they call it left behind. Therefore, when I studied that thing, I did not live the segregation of this culture, of this capitalism paradigm. I came from a different paradigm, but I was able, and I had to detach from my own culture to understand their culture. So I kind of lived for a while with the people, understanding everything, asking too many, sometimes naive questions, but you need to understand it. So when I start writing the dissertation, I wrote it by both lens. My background as Fatma, the Arab lady, and Fatma that understands the American culture. So it took me a while to understand the things, and then you bring the science and the theories and blend them together. So it was not an easy experience, but I've learned a lot. And I took that and I came back to Kuwait, my culture, but with another form of me, another form of myself. So when I wanted to start the research, am I going to use the Western, or am I going to rebound myself with the culture that I grew up in? I kind of felt that I don't belong to either or. Why? Because social sciences is not about either or, 0 or 1, the language of coding and engineering. It's a different thing. So I wanted to use the references of the science theories that I've learned while I was studying versus the motivation of trying to explore the dilemmas in the education system in Kuwait and trying to fix it and trying to explore it. And by mixing both, my perspective has changed a lot. And my experience went deeper when I explored a lot of things in the system that it is so vivid, but because of the culture, we sometimes don't see it. So my vision of the problem has shaped. Why? Because I used the science, but I detached from my culture for a while, and then I came back to it. Now, do I still understand the American culture? I have been, since 2012, I went for, a small trip in the States in 2019. It was a very, just, passing my friends and saying hi to my professors. But I believe that if I go back for a sabbatical or so, I know I will need to assign myself to a place to revisit the culture, because culture develops, culture evolves, culture, it's so tricky when you wanted to do something. Now, here's the thing. Who guided me in my research? There are a lot of scholars, but I will give you my advice, my own story. And I wanted to make this presentation personal instead of just, giving you solid facts, and I feel super disconnected from the audience. I mean, it's afternoon in Kuwait, it's Friday, and I know some people joined from all over the world, and I don't want it to make it boring. So giving you my own story, my own experience, probably going to help. So where did I start the research? I actually got inspired by Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond. She's amazing in, in the field of culture and education. And my chair, Dr. Dale Baker, my doctoral chair, she is one of the best science educators in the States. And she wrote a lot about equity in science, and especially equity in science for girls. And she spoke about how different cultures, girls in science have more opportunities than the States. So you cannot generalize that, sometimes girls are behind, because in Kuwait, it's the boys that are being disadvantaged versus girls. The segregation of school system in Kuwait has affected negatively on boys. And I'm writing a chapter, I didn't publish it yet. It's in the process, and I'll be happy to share it with Dr. Ahmed, and he can share it with all the audience. Dr. Darling-Hammond is one of the best, if you want to refer to her. She is amazing, especially with teachers and teacher professional development, and how to understand teachers and the culture of teachers. There is a culture that we neglect. I mean, people would see teachers in a certain trait, just like, the word draw a scientist, the first image, and there is a research behind it, asking people to draw a scientist. And usually people would draw, an old guy with a lab coat and curly or, white hair, bald and old. That image came from, the domination of white male in the science field and neglecting others. So, but, nowadays, there are a lot of scientists all over the globe, but people still would draw the scientist as a male person, but versus a teacher. If we say a teacher, immediately you'll see a female with, a skirt and, this uniform, wearing probably, holding some lesson plan books, and there is a white or black board behind her. So this putting things in solid structure is killing us, and sometimes is affecting our validity of our own research, and we're not aware of it. And we think we're doing the right thing, but we didn't go deeper. That's why the importance of qualitative research versus, skimming the phenomena with a survey is not sometimes enough. Case studies and, focus group interviews, analysis, and coding, and field studies are very important. It will give you the sight of, oh, so this is how we do it, and this is how we understand, or this is what's really happening behind the performance of a student in a class. And a very vivid example that I've lived for 5 years, from 2015 to 2019. Well, I resigned in 2018, but I continued, following up with the story about the failure of the reform education program in Kuwait. Kuwait government has consulted the World Bank in 2010 or 2006 to establish a reform or an indicator program to start to know the errors that's taking place in the system of education. But then from that indicator project, they proposed a bigger project, which is the standards and, you know, other different sub-projects. But then it was all, you know, clustered to create the education, you know, reform development in Kuwait program. And they signed the agreement in 2015. We started the work. I was involved in the second pillar. They had 5 pillars, which is, you know, the standards of curriculum, developing the curriculum and the standards. Teacher effectiveness, I was responsible for it. School effectiveness, and then assessment and evaluation, and what else? Accountability for the whole system of education. We worked for 5 years. Let's say an army of people, from teachers, supervisors, general managers, different, you know, how many ministers, like 3 to 4 ministers, 3, I guess, I'm not sure. We don't have a sustainable, you know, government. That's why we keep shifting and rotating the ministers. So basically we worked for 5 years, but in 2019 it was ended and was not extended. It was supposed to extend for another 5 years, but they've terminated the contract. They ended the project. And where are all the 5 programs? They've disappeared. Why? Because the World Bank did the same mistake with other, you know, other consultancies that they've done. They go to the high end, to the output, trying to fix the problem instead of the input. So they went immediately to the school, interviewing teachers and principals who doesn't have any authority in the system. They don't really do anything other than receiving the command and execute it. So they don't have any power in changing rules and regulations. Instead of negotiating what should be done in this, let's say, school system, they didn't go to the structure of the country itself. Kuwait's Ministry of Education is under the Civil Service Commission rules. So we follow a legislative practice that comes from a unified source in the whole government. And they didn't go there. They started with the output, the school, the assessment. They started with the assessment, but we don't have a hierarchy in the ministry itself that could take over the national assessments, and it stopped. So working backwards, why? Because most of the consultants came from the West in a decentralized system. In a decentralized system, you can go to the school and start a change. Why? Because the principal has authority. However, in Kuwait, the principal is a manager following the rules that the school district is commanding him or her to do. That's why it didn't work out. This is an example that you need to avoid. One day, any of those 55 participants, mashallah, here, you're probably going to be a consultant. And I hope to see you consultant in the future. You need to understand the culture. You need to understand the regulations. Always ask, even in your own country, remember, and admin work really matters. It really taught me a lot. I was thankful that I joined in admin work prior going back and teach in a university. Why? Because I understand the complexity of the admin work in the government system. And this is something important. Always ask, this is 101. Ask about the rules and regulations, and then ask about what could be next and how can we, reform with the same tools that you have. Sometimes you cannot deconstruct the ministry and rebuild it again. It's impossible. So you need to know the pillars that at least you can shift and create a change. And that requires patience, requires assessment, prior diagnostic assessment with valid tools, qualitative, quantitative, with a prior knowledge. Without that, you won't create anything, and you will face what the reform education program in Kuwait faced. Another example, the international assessment, which is TIMSS study. TIMSS is an international assessment of mathematics, and it is practiced for 4th and 8th grade students are around, like, probably many countries participate. Kuwait also participates in the assessment every 4 years since 1995. And Kuwait and almost all GCC countries are in the tail of and at the bottom of the scale, although they're trying their best. But again, we're doing the international assessment with the education platform that does not really match with what is going on globally. So I'm talking about my country here. Kuwait doesn't have standards. We don't have the culture of national assessment. So the countries that participate, their children are, they have some sort of national assessment and some sort of prior knowledge of thinking, critical thinking. While in Kuwait, most of our, let's say, science examination, and I wrote a paper about this, only measures the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy, which is like remembering, memorization, if we develop it, understanding and analysis, but they don't really go up with the critical thinking. And unfortunately, there are a lot of questions in the international assessment that does not really trigger to the students or understand it, and they can do well. Another variable here in the international assessment, a lot of students don't want to participate because it's like, I need this effort to be graded and to go to my GPA, then I will practice correctly. This one, I'm not gonna do it. I can skip questions, I can, do anything. So it's not reflecting the real and the truth of our performance of our students. And other things, the culture itself, there isn't a much communication between parents and schools in Kuwait. Usually they would go, if there is a problem with the student, if there is a bullying or any sort of, problem that is affecting the student. Another issues that could happen, it's related to the grades. If the grades start to drop, then the parents would communicate the school. Other than that, sometimes there are some certain activities that they participate in, but usually there isn't a very let's say strong communication between teachers and parents. We do have teacher parent conference days, and again the sharing point is the grades. Your child is performing well, your child needs improvement in such and such. So international assessment is another example for us about why our students are not really performing well. It's like asking a person who did not practice swimming in his life to join the Olympiad and start swimming perfectly. Penguin in the desert. Okay, so penguin in the desert, that does not really match. It's just like when I like the Finland paradigm of education, and I would just go and borrow it and bring it to Kuwait. And of course, it's not going to work. Why? If those policies would work in the GCC countries, not only Kuwait, then penguins will live in the desert. And there is a study that or a lecture that I've heard from a colleague in the UAE, and he talked about how we keep borrowing models that looks perfect, but does not really trigger the culture. And here comes the importance of social sciences. We need to understand our culture before we execute anything, and we understand what is behind it that makes such and such. We don't want to, I'm not asking to divide divide or segregate the society and start to categorize it to create the, let's say, the discrimination. But however, we have it, but we don't acknowledge it. We have it among us. We have it here. Let's say I'm talking about Kuwait. We have a segregation in sect. We have a segregation based on tribal versus, non-tribal families. But we don't really acknowledge it, and we don't want to. So we keep talking about it, but we don't sometimes document it very well. And this is creating a gap in education. If I go to some districts here in Kuwait, like Al Ahmadi district and Al Jahra, students are in need of a lot of support. Although they have, some of them, they're not poor, but they need adjustment in the culture. They need support in the structure of the family. But we don't want to speak the truth. We assume all over Kuwait are the same. And this is a mistake. Why? Because we chose to be blind. We don't want to acknowledge it, and we would say, no, we're not. And we widen the gap by assuming that everything is fine. Another thing that is also missing in Kuwait is that valid statistics. To gather numbers in Kuwait is a challenge. To archive things in this loose, old hierarchy government system is another challenge. Every year, I task myself to go to the ministry asking all the numbers from each individual department, although we have a department of the planning, but they are narrowed to certain indicators that does not measure anything. And it's like an archiving and old data that does not really help in solving problems. So I go to the Department of Examination, and then I go to the Department of Planning, and I go to the Department of General Education and start collecting all of that year by year. Now they know me. They keep the files for me every year, and I pass and I have like this cup of tea and organize my files and take them. But this could cause what I call it Alzheimer. It's like a loss of memory, because by the time we want to analyze any problem, just like what happened in the, let's say the disrupt of education in the beginning of the pandemic, and we could not resume education. Why? Because we don't have a harmony between those departments in the same entity. And that was another problem. Now, going back to tips for you, and I would, I guess that's my last, slide. I would say understand the culture of others and re-understand your own culture. Meaning, you need sometimes to detach from your own culture and go to a different culture that will make you real powerful and more aware of your own self and your own self in relationship to your culture. Do not overuse your understanding of your own culture. I'm Kuwaiti, I understand everything. And by understanding all of these things, sometimes I tend to neglect them. I don't really focus. It's like, oh no, this is a common sense. No, it's not a common sense if we view it from being an outsider. So, for example, now I am a UNESCO consultant. I need to understand things that not only in Kuwait, but in Kuwait and in relationship to the region, the relationship to the world and the globe. So I need to have a wider image, a ability to understand other cultures and how people see me from a different angle. That's why what is common sense for you might be a phenomena for others. Allow your emotional intelligence to guide you. But don't let emotions guide you. Meaning, you need to have the logic of emotions while understanding a certain case study. Sometimes you need to see beyond. So this cannot be done with structured and solid and limited tools. Emotions can stretch and can go beyond. That's why sometimes you need to allow this intelligence of your emotions to interfere your thinking and your logic while you are conducting a study. This is my short story about my journey. I'm still learning. I like to challenge myself by exploring other cultures. It is just a magic to understand the cultures. And trust me, we are our field is way complex than engineers. Engineers, they have to fix one thing and then they go and they plug it and they would have an output. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fatma.
Let me stop sharing. Where? How can I stop sharing?
Let me help you. Just
all right, stop sharing. Yes, it showed. I
Thank
hope
so
my little journey was valuable for all our participants. And you want me to see the questions?
Sure.
I don't know how to.
No worries, I will handle it. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatma, for the informative and very useful webinar. And also, thank you for sharing your experience. And thank you for telling us about story in US and also in Kuwait. Before we start, of course, for the audience, if you have a question, please raise your hand, or you can write your question in Q&A. Professor Salim, we need your we need you to talk. We as always, better than you write, you know, the comment. Dr. Fatma, so let me start, please, if you don't mind. So first of all, I like the title of Penguin in the Desert.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Fatma, what's your suggestion to improve the education? And you talk a lot about Kuwait. So let's talk about Kuwait and then internationally. So, for example, in other countries, how we can develop the education of teaching and
yeah. Now the pandemic really clicked a lot of and stressed on a lot of things. We need to understand that when coronavirus across the globe really affected every school around the globe in the same pattern, meaning a lot of our school cannot or was not ready and was not fully integrating technology into education, meaning a lot of teachers were unaware of all the updated tools and platforms about education technologies, like Microsoft Teams, other platforms, other tools. Why? Because we, as a globe, we left, or we added the technology in a segregation from the classroom. We did not integrate it. We kind of either used it or we kind of let it or enforce it into our lesson. That's why it was awkward and it was not really blended well with the curriculum, with the school structure. So now the UNESCO, with a lot of countries, are really talking about redesigning schools and structuring it in a way to make the technology as part of the culture of the school. And this is something that we need to work as a globe. So now they are really, in the UNESCO, really re-evaluating the fourth goal of education to emphasize of the use of technology. So this is one tip that we've practiced right now.
Also, Dr. Fatma, you mentioned a lot about case studies, research, and this stuff. So how you can link the research or the case studies that you learn with the teaching to improve the education?
Yes, it's very important to have this sort of action research in the body of the ministry. Usually, research in university are solid, are passive, are in relation to theories. However, when we go to the field, they don't really know how to translate the theory into practices. And there is a gap between what's going on in the university when we talk the theory and practice the theory in the field. So what's in between has to be a sort of, or a genre called research action. And this is how we train teachers to do the theory and practice it in the classroom and making the results and give it to the colleges, and the interaction must be taking place. In Kuwait, we don't have this good relation. We have a gap. The states, they've created a program to bridge the gap between theories and practices, between professors and teachers.
All right. Thank you. So now you talk about the education in general, you talk about locally and international. Also, how to link the research with the education. So now all what you talk about, Dr. Fatma, about professors and lectures in the university or in the schools, but how about students? How they can improve it? It's one both of them they need to improve. So how we can let the students to improve, or
there are many programs, many ways to improve students' outcome. First of all, understand their culture and their backgrounds and scaffold them with the right programs, meaning you can't you need to customize sometimes and use the differentiated instructions. There is a whole genre of reading about differentiating instructions. You cannot have a size that fits all students. You need to customize what they need. And that comes with a lot of extensive work and too many models. You cannot just use one model. That's why the over-centralization of a system would kill it, will take the creativity away. So creativity is a very important element in developing students' outcome.
Thank you. We have a question from Wenya Line from China. Dr. Wen, if you don't mind, can you raise your hand? Maybe it will be better, so you can, contact Dr. Fatma directly.
Hello, Dr. Wen.
May you unmute your mic? Yes.
Yeah, hello, doctor.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, nice to meet you here. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to your webinar. Yeah, so yeah, I am a PhD student in University of Malaysia. In Malaysia, I'm studying in Malaysia. Yeah, so my interest is about student curriculum culture in second language teaching. Yeah, so my question is, should I repeat my question here, or I can?
Could you please repeat it, please?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, my first question is, may I ask if you do you see hidden curriculum as a theory, or just a phenomenon, please?
You mean the theory of curriculum? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so do you see the hidden curriculum as a theory or just a phenomenon in the education?
Well, it's the curriculum itself is a broad terminology. So fitting your culture and given the spirit comes within your own practices. So for example, we all do math. You do math in your own country, I do math in my own country, but there are certain things that we do here in Kuwait based on, let's say, using the currencies or the tax, for example. We don't pay tax in Kuwait, so I don't know anything about tax calculations, while in the States they teach students in school how to calculate the tax. So that it's also shaped. It is the same math, but it is customized to produce students as citizens in their own culture, and they are active and able to use the things around them. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, so the second question is, in your perspective, yeah, we talk about culture a lot, right? So in your perspective, what is culture mean, please?
Okay, culture means it's the hidden variables that I keep exploring. It's what caused this identity of me as an Arab, of you as being an Asian, of a Caucasian to be, you know, a Western guy, she or he. So culture is really, let's say, I've kind of narrowed it down to my field, but every culture, every environment has its own culture, and we enrich it with our practices, with our imagination. Just like, you know, we have a lot of heroes in our culture. You have, you know, some heroes, some feminists in your culture you get inspired by. So again, and you know, now in the UNESCO, they've created the global citizenship. There are things that no matter what, we are in relationship with, like, you know, being humble, being respectful. This is not about culture. This is about, you know, a broader issue, which is a concept. However, in my culture, sometimes being respectful goes back to the roots of our decency. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So
thank you for sharing.
I still have two more questions if I could. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So how do you consider the relationship between the hidden curriculum and the culture, please? Especially in our
yes, there is this hidden curriculum is very tricky. For example, I could, as a teacher, neglect a student who would raise his hand based on his ethnicity, considering that he will or she will answer the question not correctly. So I would omit this student because my parents taught me those certain group are idiots. So I have a perspective, and I didn't speak it, and I didn't say it. I just practiced it. And this is very, very important. And I have seen a case study of a white American lady, a teacher, who kept neglecting different ethnicities in her classroom, and they've recorded her. And then she went back and she understood that her parents unconsciously influenced her to not respect those when she was a child. And actually not her parents, her grandparents. And she did not pay attention when she asked the question. It was very nice case study, and they were able to solve the problem. So sometimes you need to do this recording of yourself to understand, what did I do wrong? Again, we cannot see ourselves when we are too rooted to our culture and being influenced by it in a way that no one can, or you cannot see the mistake itself, and you consider it just something normal.
Yeah, okay. So as you mentioned, there are some case study or the very good case study, right? So could you please later share the references to us, or
I would gather them all. I can send it to Dr. Ahmed Ligattan. I can share with you about the cases of Kuwait that I have explored, and also some of the readings, the important readings of Dr. Darling Hammond.
Oh, wow, thank you so much.
Sure.
So my last question is, could you please share some more experience, in teaching, in dealing with the hidden curriculum in teaching, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a great book by Eric Margolis, and it was one of the best about hidden curriculum. And he taught me one of the courses. So I have this book somewhere here in my library, and I'll take it and I'll pull it.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'll share it with you. Yeah, he taught me a lot. He's the one who's behind showing those case studies, and he actually did a comparison between China's school, Japan, and the state. It was all videotaped. It was visual ethnography, actually.
Awesome, cool. I'm so glad to know that. Please do share the book or the references.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I will do. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wen. Thank you, appreciate it. So from China back to Kuwait, then we'll have another question with Professor Salim. So before we go, we have a question from Badr Tarawa. Hello, Professor Fatma. What do you think about the current online learning system in Kuwait? And do you think it's fair for the students or not?
Okay. I'm finalizing the report for the UNESCO, and it's almost like 50 pages. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good, because my camera froze for a second and I don't know. So basically, the online learning in Kuwait is, they misused the concept of online learning by what they call it. They had moved the traditional method in the student and the teacher, because most of the time the cameras are off. Kuwait system really relied on the assessment, the summative assessment, meaning having the test and the final exams, but did not really develop a formative assessment. That's why we had an issue. I think my camera is having an issue.
Yes. If you can't switch it off and then switch it on, I think.
I'm doing it all the time. I know. By the time تعلق وياي الكاميرا. I don't know why.
No worries. Dr. Fatima.
If I touch anything, I'll be out. So let's just continue with my funny picture.
Yes, no worries. Keep going. Go on, Dr.
Okay. So what is the question?
So, Dr. Also a question regarding the teaching or the education in general. What is the difference between before and after the pandemic? So what is the new thing here?
All right. Now we need a recovery. Yeah, we need a recovery plan, meaning we cannot go back to the past. We need to learn from the past, a new methodology, a new hierarchy, a new system that is ready for the student of tomorrow. We cannot use old-fashioned tools to create the citizen of the future. So this is, I could say, this is the most important thing.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Professor Salim, can you raise your hand, please? Professor Salim. Salam, sorry. Professor Salam.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It was like every time you are surprised us with the new topic, a new unique person. It's a valuable information that Dr. Fatma spoke with us. It is very useful and rich information.
I'm going to enter from my phone and close the... Yeah, can you see me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see you, but you can't hear us. You hear me, Dr. Ahmed?
I can hear you, yes. Just a minute.
So what about her?
Just a minute. Dr. Fatma, can you hear us? We can't hear you, Dr. We can't hear you. Give her a second.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay. Now it's brilliant.
Again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excuse me, Dr. Ahmed. I interrupt you maybe.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Dr.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Fatma, for your valuable information. And it's like every time I say that before, Dr. Ahmed surprised us with the new topic and new persons, unique person like you. Thanks for your rich information and useful as well. I have my special opinion about this issue, about the culture will affect science or vice versa or something like this. I think in Arab countries, we have a problem from the upbringing, the wrong upbringing of the generation. Always we are starting the reform from the top. When we reach the problem, thinking about the problem, not thinking about the roots of this problem. For example, what happened after the pandemic hit all the education system over the world, it's clear, very clear, that's which education system is strong and can, for example, adopt the change that will happen after the pandemic. For example, here in Iraq, we started with the e-learning or distance learning, but with resisting for change from the students. They don't need to learn. They don't need to educate. They don't need to looking for the knowledge. There's difference, I think, between the readiness for change and adopting the change. If we don't have the readiness for change, we cannot apply any type of reform in education system or higher education system. This is my brief opinion. I think the consequences of the reforms will be affect the education system negatively, not positively, because we didn't start correctly from the kindergarten period, from the kids. For example, the Finland experience, maybe you have idea about it, or another countries, as you mentioned before, China's education system, or USA education system, or maybe Japanese education system. This is the briefly or brief about my opinion. Thanks again for your lecture. Thanks for Dr. Ahmed. I think we have to looking for the suitable starts in order to find the suitable end of our education system. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your talk, and thanks for sharing your viewpoints. Actually, Dr. Salim, yes, our students, we have trained them to look forward the certificate, but not the knowledge. They are after the what we call it shahada, or the certificate, but the valuable of it, we don't care. We don't care if they have this proficiency in certain knowledge. That's why we lack experts. And this something is going across all the Arab countries. I've participated in a lot of forums prior pandemic, and now even during pandemic, I've shared and tried my best to get involved with Arab forum electronically and distantly. And I've noticed that we have this common issue. Why? Because, again, just as you said, we go to the dead end, we go to the far end, and we consider finding the solution there and going mile long, inch deep about the problem.
Correcting or try to correcting generation with age 20 years or above, it is very difficult because they have characters, values, habits.
Exactly. We have contextualized them in a way, and a certain, we ask them to perform in a certain way that they now got adapted to it. They are, again, eager to get a job in place, but they
are not,
want
yes,
to perform.
They are not ready. They are not ready to accept it.
That's why, because we need to acknowledge the things. We cannot, again, we cannot say, no, our system is really good. No, our system is bad, and we need to acknowledge that. And that the first step is to say our system is not okay. It's okay to say, I'm not okay, because it's part of the solution. But the eager and I don't know, they keep, this arrogance leadership that they really don't want to solve the problem, but kind of go in circle around it.
Political leadership, not skilled leadership.
We have involved people in politics, and we made them empty in terms of their own professions.
Yes, for example, we have many ministers with a grade of 55 of graduation, and put them in very important ministry. What can we waiting for from this person, like this person with very weak knowledge about his roles? He don't have any skills to rule out or to manage or to lead.
Create another talk about this issue, I guess. Thank you.
Yes. It's a very big issue.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Sanam. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Also, there is a question from Mohammed Kihel. What are the advantages of taking courses online?
Okay, I have experience taking courses online long time ago in the States, and what teaches you is a very important thing. It sharpens the skills of self-education. So self-educating is an art by itself, and it's very important that any of us have this skill. School, institutions, any educational institute does not really, have the ultimate science and ultimate knowledge. Again, working in the field is an experience and learning. Having online your own readings, your own reflections can develop your own knowledge.
Exactly. Totally agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Fatma, thank you so much for your presentation, for your time and effort. It's really very nice.
For the error.
Sorry?
But I was yeah, but I was able to switch and join from my phone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So really, we are appreciated for your effort and your time, Doctora, and also thank you again for accepting my invitation. We hope to continue. I know it's your first time with ITAR, but I hope we'll continue a series from different webinars or topics. Also, maybe if you can talk to us later on about professional teaching certificates, like what's happened in UK right now. They give different certificates. If you can give us next time, I think you need an hour to talk about this thing. Before we end this webinar, let's see, maybe Dr. Salam, do you have a question, Dr. Salam?
He said he wants
Yes, please. Yes, please. If you don't mind, I would like to thank you again, and thanks the keynote speaker, Dr. Fatma, for her unique presentation. And if you don't mind, Dr. Ahmed or her don't mind, I will invite her to present like this for our master degree student presentation, and she can choose the suitable time and date.
Send me an email, Doctor, and I will talk to her.
Inshallah. I'll coordinate with Dr. Ahmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I have to leave now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Fatma. Inshallah, we hope we continue doing other session. Appreciate it. And next week we have a different. If you have a last word, Dr. Fatma, before we.
I hope. I mean, it's this online platforms really connected us and made us think about things that we all share. So we have a unified concept. Focus on our global citizenship and get inspired by your own culture and share it with us. This is my final message from today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So from Kuwait to Jordan, next week we have a different webinar and also different keynote, another keynote speaker, Dr. Hala Zaidan, the head of accounting department in Jordan University, on 8th of April, and she will talk about an intro in Stata, one of the best software for accounting and also economics. So if you want to learn, it will be empirical webinar. So if you want to learn about it, please register in this webinar. I will announce it tomorrow in all my accounts that I already shared it in the chat, and I will share it again. That's it. So again, Dr. Fatma, thank you for accepting my invitation, and see you next time. Thank you guys for attending today's webinar, and see you next week. Salam.